shift going on in on Maui right now. So I would just like for us to pause and take a moment of reflection about what's happening on Maui going on and some of the families that have been devastated, not only from a property standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. So if we just might take a few seconds just to reflect on that before we start our meeting. Thank you. I've thought about, I know we're on a different island. I spoke earlier with Bonnie. I think the fires on the Big Island have been somewhat contained and nowhere near the type of tragedy on Maui. But if anybody has ideas how we, as the Mauna Kea Authority, can assist, do something to help. I feel kind of helpless in that way. But if people have an idea about how we might assist those that have been suffering on Maui, open to any suggestions. So anyway, we don't have to be right now, but just it may be that we this agency cannot do anything to support them, but just think creatively if you might. So with that, I wanted to call the meeting to order. My understanding is that there are no comments, no one wishing to give testimony at this point on the agenda item, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. So on the approval of the minutes for the July 13th meeting, I had a few suggested corrections, more some substantive, but not totally. So one of the corrections that I wanted to make deals with West Machita's, the description of West Machita. One is that he received a master's in business administration from the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and not from Chaminade University. So we'll delete the reference to Chaminade University at that point, and then just correct the typo that describes him as the Department of Finance head. The second correction that I would make would be in regards to Dr. Greg Chun and Rodrigo Romo. We didn't get exactly the gallonages right of the existing USTs, underground storage tanks, as well as the what would replace the underground storage tank. So currently there are 3 underground storage tanks with a 12,000 gallon diesel tank, a 4,000 gallon gas tank, and a 2,000 gallon gas tank. So we would make that correction in terms of the numbers that are reflected there. Those underground storage tanks will be replaced by a single 10,000 gallon gas tank, which will have the capacity to hold both 5,000 diesel and 5,000 gasoline. So there'd be a reduction in the amount of gallons of fuel that's stored. But anyway, I don't know what happened, but anyway, Rodrigo called it out to us that there was a mistake in his reflected in his report. So with those amendments, I would ask if there are any other amendments to the minutes. If not, if I could get a motion to approve as.
Hey, John, this is really minor, but there was a typo too.
Okay.
Notice that the word Kamehameha was misspelled. I saw it earlier, but now I can't find it. But if we could just look for that and correct that, minor.
Will do.
And I'll make a motion to approve.
I get a second. Okay, thanks, Paul. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. I forgot to ask, can everyone confirm that they are alone in the meeting? There's no one else in the room. All right, thank you. All right, chair's report. At this point, I'd like to introduce Ben Kudo to all of you. Some of you may know Ben from prior stints that he's had. Ben is an attorney that specializes in land use. One of the foremost attorneys dealing with land use in the state. He is a partner at Ashford and Riston. He also, one of his community involvement was that he served on the Regents for a couple of terms and was actually the chair of the board of the Regents. I forget the exact years, but up until 2020, I believe, Ben.
Yeah, 2021. Yeah.
2021. So Ben has been appointed. Let me back up a step. Alapaki has been named as the new chair of the Board of Regents. Both Randy Moore and Jean Bao have rotated off the Regents. So with the new chair has the ability to either sit as a member of the authority or designate someone, either a current or former regent, to sit on our board. So Alapaki has selected Ben to sit as the UH board chair, regents chair, representative on our board. Ben, during his term on the board, became very familiar with Mauna Kea and some of the issues and challenges that were being faced on the Mauna. So he comes to us with some background there. So Ben, I just give you a minute or two to introduce yourself and add whatever you might like.
Well, I'm very happy to be here with all of you. Hopefully I can be of value to the authority as it moves forward. Yeah, John is correct. I served for about 10 years as on the Board of Regents and was the chair during the latter part of my term. I was designated by the Board of Regents to really be the point person to study Mauna Kea and the various issues that it faced for about 5 years of my 10-year term. And so I'm quite familiar with a lot of the entitlements, leases, subleases, and other things. Was part of the reorganization, restructuring of the management in 2020 or 2021, I forget. And the development of the master plans, comprehensive modifications of the comprehensive management plan, master plan, and those kinds of documents that were the managing documents for the university there. Very familiar with all of the allegations and mismanagement issues that the university faced, and was tasked to try to address those and try to correct them as best we could. And so very familiar with those type of issues facing the mountain. I hope that I can bring some degree of expertise to the authority to facilitate the smooth transition between the university and the authority by July 1st of 2028, which is not a very long time, actually, to do all the work that is that I know is necessary to consummate all of those conveyances, transfers, and other things that need to be done, and all the details that it involves in that very complex operation up there. So anyway, very happy to be here with you all, and I hope that I can contribute in a very positive way to the success of the authority. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. If you guys don't mind, I know everybody is pressed for time and everything, but if we could just go around the room and everybody just introduce themselves, where their background, and just so that Ben, some of you may know him, but others may not.
I'll start. Good morning, Ben. Aloha. I've met you before.
Right.
um, yeah, so I retired from the University of Hawaii system, and in my retirement, um, this is one of my most active events, participation in Mauna Kea Authority. So I live in Hilo, and I am on the authority as a designee of the Speaker of the House, and was on the working group that preceded the formation of the authority. So yeah, really looking forward to working with you.
Okay, Paul.
My career spans about 30 years and 35 years in hospitality. I lived on every island except for Kaho'olawe, Ni'ihau, and Rabbit Island. But during that time, I served in many nonprofit organizations. Was with the Hawaii Community Foundation from 7 to 9 years, on and off. Served with Ho'ololahui, which is the Kauai Community Health Center, as a board member. And being on this board is probably the most important board I think I could think of, to join or to get accepted. So, and I was born and raised in Hawaii, Kamehameha schools. I'm living in Arizona right now, but planning a move back within the next few months. Aloha.
Good to meet you, Paul.
Rich.
Hi, Ben. I think we've met briefly before. I look forward to working with you. I'm the astronomy rep. I'm currently interim director of Keck Observatory. Was also on the Mauna Kea working group with Noi Noi and Lana Kila, who's not here today, and Bonnie. So we bring that to the working group. I've been 30 years as an engineer and technical manager in astronomy on Mauna Kea with Keck. So good to meet you again, and good to work with you.
Nice to see you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich. Kamana.
Aloha mai kako, aloha mai Rich. Met a couple times, and I'm glad you're here to join us. Looking forward to learning from your vast experience. My background, I'm a kawa no ke aloha I ka aina, and here in Pu'ukapu Waimea, and happy to be serving in this important kuleana. Aloha.
Wow.
Thank you. Sorry. Bonnie.
Well, Ben knows me. Aloha, Ben. Welcome. And I would add something to his bio. He was actually the board chair that appointed me to the Mauna Kea working group. So those of you with whom I worked there, you can thank or curse Ben for that effort. Aloha.
All right. Kalehua.
Hey, aloha, Ben. Kalehua Krug, a resident of Waianae. I sit in the education seat, and I'm currently a principal at a Hawaiian Focus Charter School in Nanakuli on Oahu.
Kalehua. Doug.
Aloha, Ben. Doug Adams. Mayor of the County of Hawaii is ex officio on this authority. I'm his designated representative. I'm the director for research and development. I'm here in the county, live in Hilo. Great to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Doug. So the other two people, Ben, on the call, I know you've met Wes Machida before, but Wes is soon to be interim executive director of the authority. But right now he is associated with Speaker Psyche, who has lent him to provide a lot of guidance for us. The other individual on the call is Jordan Ching. Jordan is Deputy Attorney General. He's sitting in right now for Ryan Kanakaole, who is our regular Attorney General, but Ryan has another board that he has to serve between, I don't know, it's 10 and 11, but Ryan will be here at 11. So Jordan is helping to represent us during that 1 hour period.
See you.
Thanks, everybody. So with that, in terms of governance, I wanted to create an additional pig made up of Rich Matsuda, Noi Noi, and myself to kind of continue to investigate and study the governance of the authority. And this would allow us, the three of us, the chair, vice chair, and vice chair, to meet on a regular basis without having to go through the rigors of notice and all that other stuff. And of course, we would come back at the appropriate time with a report and would not be able to create anything on ourselves. But with that explanation, I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I would ask for a motion that would allow us to create that pig.
I would move to, go ahead, Nona.
I am so moved.
Doug, you can second.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. Any discussion, any questions?
I just want to make sure that that if we could just ask that the way you formulated it is specific enough for the development of the interaction group.
Jordan, you have any problem with the general description that I gave, that in terms of investigating and educating ourselves more about the governance? The key word is governance, of course, right?
Yeah, investigating governance, that should be fine. I mean, the main priority, the main requirement is just to make sure that that's understandable to the board and to the public. So as long as that's, I think that does follow it. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jordan.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion?
I do have a question, just along the lines of Doug's question. The pig that you are creating gives us the opportunity to organize and plan for the governance of Mauna Kea Authority.
Correct.
Correct.
But any decision would have to come before the entire board.
Absolutely.
You can make a report and recommendations, and the entire board would retain the decision-making ability.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
John, I think I know the answer to this, but just to clarify for everyone that permitted interaction groups are allowed to consult others. And so it's not just the three of us. If it's in terms of investigating governance and we want to talk with the university or with the LNR or whatever, that we're allowed to do that. Yes.
Right. Correct. Other question? Okay, if not, there's a motion to create this pigs aimed at investigating governance. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so in terms of administration, I wanted to call on Wes to kind of provide us the status in terms of the hiring of the executive assistant and later where we are in terms of getting the position description approved for the executive director and our organizational chart. So Wes, if you might start with the executive assistant, where we are.
Okay, in terms of, good morning, everybody again. In terms of the executive assistant, I know it's been a long time coming, but hopefully it's at the tail end. My understanding currently is that the DLNR personnel office has to go through the process of doing a final clearance for the, sorry, there's a plane coming over my house, so it might be disrupting the audio on your side. But anyway, so they're going through the final clearance. Hopefully it'll be done this week. The personnel officer has to do the review, and she was on vacation until this past week. And so she's getting back to reviewing it. And once she's completed with it, hopefully this week, then there's a transaction section that needs to do some inputting into their system. And they simultaneously will be calling John and Rich as the chair of the recruitment committee to notify Huena about a start date. So hopefully the earliest that we're looking at, or the latest I should say, would be within the next 2 weeks. So hopefully it could be sometime next week that this could all be done. So that's as far as the executive assistant is concerned. In terms of the executive director position, it's under review currently by the department. It still has to go through the Department of Human Resources Development. That's my understanding. But in order to do that, they needed to do an organizational chart update, which reflects not only from the authority standpoint, but also from the entire department, how the authority is integrated into the department's organization. And as you all know, the authority is administratively attached to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. And so that organizational chart, which includes the 6 positions that were authorized by the legislature, that's already been drafted and is working its way through the approval process. It has to go through the Department of Human Resources Development, and then eventually it'll be submitted to through Budget and Finance to the Lieutenant Governor's Office, I believe, for final filing. So that may take another month or so. And unfortunately, that holds back a lot of the positions that we are trying to establish and fill. So the earliest that you're probably looking at to fill the executive director's position is probably sometime towards, and I hate to say this, but realistically, sometime towards the end of this calendar year at the earliest. Hopefully the position description for the executive director will be finalized so you can start to do the recruitment sometime in October, November or so. And I apologize in advance. I know that the process may seem daunting and difficult and lengthy, but we still have to work with the various departments to try to get it through.
Okay.
I'm sorry, John, you were going to say something?
I was going to ask if there are any questions. Okay, one thing that we have to further investigate, it's not specific to these two processes that are going on, but if hidden within Act 255 is an exemption from HRS 2635. What HRS 2635 involves, it involves what our relationship is with DLNR and some of the approvals that most affiliated organizations have to go through when dealing with their, I don't know if you call them their parent agency for DLNR. But the point is that under the legislation, we are exempt from seeking those approvals with DLNR under Act 255. The challenge is, even though we are exempt, we still have to push things through the system. And I'm not sure people are equipped or the agency is equipped to help us push things through, although we're exempt. So it may be even more, although we're exempt, it may be a more convoluted process. Instead of streamlining things, it may make things more convoluted. So we're trying to look into what exactly that means. Yeah, no.
John, perhaps the idea of being exempt from 26-35 only works if we have our own staff to do all of the work involved in it. So at this point, because we have no staff,
Yeah.
I think we have no choice but to comply with DLNR systems because they don't have any other system.
Yeah.
So we just have to go through the motions here, even though it's just taking, it seems excruciatingly painful and long. But once we are able to fully staff ourselves, then we can invoke those sections in our act, which allow us to go, to create our own personnel system directly and hire without going through DLNR. That's what it looks like to me at any rate.
Yeah.
That's
A
just
lot,
comment.
a lot of the provisions of 2635 will deal with approval at the DLNR level. Also, so, for example, in an abundance of caution, we have had Don Chang, the chair of the DLNR, approve our employment processes that we're going through. I think if we read 2635 correctly, we may not need her approval. The other really big one that I think is there is that generally when you create your own administrative rules, you have to go to the governor and the governor has to sign off. We are, it appears, to be exempt from that process too. So there are other, in addition to systems issues, other ways that maybe are once we get staffed up, like Noe and I said, we can streamline some of the process and move things along a little quicker. But anyway, it's kind of buried. Our exemption is kind of buried within the act, so it's not that easy to find. But anyway, I just bring that to everyone's attention as something that we're looking at and trying to understand what the exemption means and how it could potentially positively impact our operations from a speed standpoint. All right, any questions about that? If not, I'd like to ask Doug to give us a status on retention of consultants. Thank you.
I'm not prepared to do that because we're not ready through the to submit a report yet.
That's fine. So we'll expect a report at the September meeting. Is that the plan?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Okay, so I hate to bring this next up.
John,
Yeah,
I just have one question, John, sorry. Going back to the previous B status of the executive director. Even though we're going through these processes that Wes is assisting us in and don't anticipate having all of our ducks in a row to hire until the end of the year, would it be prudent for us to at least begin or consider, maybe we can't do it till the September meeting, but set up your committee, your personnel committee for that? So we're not waiting until later, since it takes us so long to effectuate anything.
yeah. Let's bring that up in our September meeting. I think there's much pre-planning that we can do for all of these things, the better. And you know, we just got to make sure that, and I'll check with Ryan to make sure that that's permitted, I guess, right?
It's appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sir, can I mention something really quickly regarding the executive director position? So until the position is established, even for myself, I cannot fill it, even though you appointed me as the interim executive director. So technically, until that position has been established, which seems like it could be sometime in October or November, then you really don't have whether you have an interim or a permanent executive director, you really don't have anybody filling that position because it hasn't been established yet. Just to clarify. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions on anything that any of those subjects that we just covered? If not, I hate to bring up this, and I don't know, Wes, if you can give us a brief description of some of the travel related, what we have to do at a high level description of what we have to do to get reimbursed for travel and other expenses.
Okay, so generally, we have to follow, because we're an executive branch agency, or the authority is, you have to follow the travel rules and regulations that's issued by the executive branch. And the state procurement office has been tasked with doing that. So I'm not sure if all of you have seen the email of the travel policies and procedures that was sent out. I believe it was maybe a week or two ago. That is mirroring what the State Procurement Office has and the Department of Land and Natural Resources follows. And so it's very unfortunate too that a lot of the agencies that you have to deal with to get reimbursed has been following practices that have occurred for the last 30 years or so. And so in order for you to get your final reimbursement, it has to go through the Department of Accounting and General Services. And in order to do that, they need proper documentation, which unfortunately includes right now your boarding passes. So if you are traveling, and I know that many of you probably use your phone to get through the gates and so forth without having to print out those boarding passes. But it'll be helpful if you're able to get a boarding pass and print it out for the record, because unless you do that, and John and Noi can vouch for that, but it'll take maybe 2 or 3 additional months to get a reimbursement, if not longer. So it would be helpful if you're able to do that, to remember that before you take your trip, to at least print out 1 copy of a boarding pass. You'll have to complete a travel approval form and get that approved either by the chair or the first vice chair or the second vice chair, depending on who's traveling. You also have to get, unfortunately, 2 quotes. And so there can be justification for taking a flight that's more expensive than the other. And there's a worksheet that needs to be filled out with the justification in order to get it through. And again, I apologize, but there's a lot of documentation that's needed in order for you to get either reimbursed or you can get an advance payment. But that advance payment needs to get in probably at least 3 weeks before your travel. So unless you're able to get the approval, get whatever documentation and justification that's needed at least 3 weeks before the travel date, then you probably won't be able to get an advance payment, and you will need to get a reimbursement. And also, when you complete your travel, you're going to have to finish and complete a travel completion report. Once you do that, then it can be processed through DLNR, and then you'll get reimbursed from DAGS. Sorry to say this, but that process may take another 2 or 3 weeks after, excuse me, after you finalize your completion report. Anyway, it's a lengthy process, many documents to complete. If you have any problems, you can always call me. I don't know if you have my cell number, but it's I'll pass it on through the chair, and he can distribute it to all of the authority board members. And I'll try to help navigate through the process for you.
Thanks, Wes. It's a very painful process.
Oh,
So, John.
Yeah.
For those, just so you know, for those of you who may be traveling for August 30, I sent an email, and that email should provide you with all that information that Wes is talking about. Okay, so make sure you read that email carefully. Thank you.
Okay. Mahalo. Thanks, Wes. I'm learning so much about the state.
You have to remember, Chair, a lot of the practices and policies were developed in the 1980s and 1990s.
That's why I said I'm learning a lot about the state. All right. The next subject matter, Greg, the CMS report.
Well, authority board members, nice to see you again. Have several matters just to update the board on activities since since your last meeting. You folks have noted the disaster on Maui and due to hurricane or associated with Hurricane Dora. As far as impact on the summit, there's really nothing of note to report. We did have Tuesday very high winds, and there have been intermittent heavy fog kind of moving in quickly and then passing through. So there were some temporary road closures the last couple of days and nights, but otherwise it was mostly uneventful, and everyone is safe. So we're really thankful for that. I wanted to update you folks also on the status of the decommissioning initiatives that are underway. I'll cover Hoku first. And I want to start off this update with a big mahalo to the county, and Doug, if you could pass this on to the planning department for prioritizing this project. When we submitted our application for building permits to the county after receiving our conservation district use permit, we were initially notified that there were 700 applications in front of us, and that we would not likely receive an approval until October or November. So we were dismayed by that because it's something that a project that we really wanted to move quickly on. However, last month we were notified that the county had prioritized the project and approved the permit, which really was a shot in the arm. And so we've been able to get moving again on preparing and finalizing the bid package that will go out for bidding. That package is being reviewed now by our facilities group. Our goal is to have a contractor selected in the next couple of months. And then work will start ASAP, but it's dependent on how long it takes to select the contractor, finalizing of the project timeline, as well as weather. We are rapidly going to be bumping into the winter weather, which will preclude us moving as quickly as possible on some of these things. But nonetheless, very, very thankful that we did get the permit and are able to put the project out to bid. So that was good. On the Caltech submillimeter observatory decommissioning, just this week we received an updated timeline from the project team, Dr. Gowala and his team. There will begin projected weather permitting in mobilization of some of the smaller equipment next week, the week of the 14th. Delivery of a large forklift and a base plate to be delivered to the site. No work is actually scheduled to occur, just the delivery of that equipment. Thereafter, sometime during the week of August 21st, there will be delivery of a large crane lift and crane and man lift. This equipment is what they will use to remove the larger parts of the telescope and parts of the interior of the dome. They do not believe that they could actually start some of that work until the week of August 28th, where extraction of the telescope would begin. I think I reported to you previously, and I can't remember if Dr. Gowala also reported this, but initially they wanted to remove the telescope in one piece. Now they have decided to dismantle it. So the week of the 28th of August is when that process is projected to start. That is projected to take 3 weeks or so. And it's, they're now saying the week of September 18th is when they would turn the site over to Goodfellow, the general contractor, to start the interior demolition of the structure. Caltech Simulator Observatory is planning on issuing a news release next week. We have advised them to send an advance copy to John, and I was also told they are attempting to set up a meeting with Dr. Gowala and I believe you, Noy. I don't know if that's happened yet. But we wanted to make sure that they had discussed the timeline directly with you folks as well. They do plan on having regular updates on their website once the project gets started. I can take questions on the decommissioning now, or we can wait till after I'm done. I have a few more things to cover.
Why don't we go issue by issue? So any questions about the decommissioning?
Yeah, Greg, when will you guys have it posted on your website? On the decommissioning?
The
new
news
update.
release, yeah, the news release, when Caltech issues their official news release, we'll put it on our website for sure. And then we'll make sure we have a link to their website, which will have all of the details of your timeline.
Mahalo.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Greg. You can go, why don't you go to whatever the next subject might be.
Okay. So at last month's update to the authority board, we reviewed some projects and initiatives that were on the near horizon. I wanted to give you an update on a few of them. Excuse me. On the underground fuel storage tanks, the contract for the engineering design has been finalized and executed. That work will notice of to proceed on just the design work will be issued next week, or the start date is next week. The goal is to have the design and project timeline completed by the end of the year, at which time we'll have a better sense of how all of this thing, this initiative would lay out in terms of permitting and other requirements. So that project is moving forward. Also notified you folks or updated you folks on the relocation of some emergency communication repeaters that are used by USGS as well as the county in partnership with a volunteer organization called VOAD. I should have noted that the Red Cross, the VOAD group, did activate those repeaters during Hurricane Dora to assist with emergency communications and with the county. So the use agreements or agreement with the county is being reviewed by UH Council now. I believe the county council has also reviewed it already. That would be the agreement between the university and the county for them being able to have that repeater located up there. The technical specifications of the actual repeaters themselves and the relocation to the new site are being developed, and those would be included in the site plan approval with DLNR. So that project is moving along as well. The third one was we did review some of the larger purchases that were looming on the horizon. The biggest one is for the snow blower and plow. Purchase orders have been approved for that. Pricing options are being evaluated, and the goal is to have these purchases done before next winter. Because our equipment has really we're in need of replacing that equipment. So that is moving along. We have noticed a substantial increase in visitor activity or visitors coming, particularly between the 3 to 7 p.m. Time slot. Mostly that's due to folks being on summer travel for vacation and whatnot. We anticipate that as school gets back into session, those numbers will start to drop down. But there have been a substantial increase that we've noted. I also have notified or let Chair Komeiji know we've been contacted by some different groups who are wanting to plan legislative site visits. This is normally the time of the year that some of the committees will go out and do their annual community meetings and reviews. So nothing has been confirmed yet. House Finance Committee is looking at coming up in October, but that's not firm yet. Ways and Means, Senate Ways and Means was considering a visit, but I was told yesterday that now it's not going to happen. I believe Water and Land, the House Water and Land Committee, Representative Ichiyama's committee, they want to come back. They had come up last year, and John was able to join us at that time. So I've let everybody know that, to please loop John in on all of these site visits once they do get confirmed. I don't know if that's happened, but I want to make sure that you folks are looped in on those as well. And then the last item, which I don't really have any further information about, I know you folks will be taking up the board resolution and the letter to the authority and DLNR that was issued last week. If there's any information we can provide on that, more than happy to help. But I believe you have received copies of all of that stuff. So with that, that concludes my operations update to the authority.
Oh, great. Questions?
Yeah, I do, John.
Go ahead.
Greg, when you talk about the increase in visitors coming in the evening hours, can you give us some numbers to illustrate that increase? What was the number last year compared to this year, or how are you viewing that?
Yeah, we can get you those numbers. I don't have them on me right now. Nahua notified me that there was a noticeable increase. We do have numbers, and we can get those to you folks. And we track them. We track it based on vehicles primarily, number of vehicles going on.
So you would know whether they're private vehicles versus the contracted vans.
Correct. There's basically three categories. There's, observatory staff, the commercial tours, and then private vehicles. And private vehicles includes both residents as well as visitors.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, if you would provide us with that
Sure.
detail, that would be great. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Hearing none, thank you very much, Mahalo Greg, for your.
Also, John, just noting for the record that Mauna Kea has joined us. He
Yeah.
was actually, he was able to come on before Greg's report, I think.
Yeah, I noticed that he was on. He just wanted for me to see his smiley face today, so he turned on his camera.
Yeah. Mark him present, please.
Yes, got it.
Follow
Okay.
my tiredness, Dr. Paul.
Okay, with that, there's several issues that we wanted to take up in executive session. So if we could get a motion to allow us to go into executive session and a second.
So move.
Okay, and you're adopting the language that's in the agenda description.
Yes.
All right, could I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. We'll go into executive session now. Okay, we're back. We're coming back. There's anybody outside of the room that has to be called back to let them know that we're going back in session.
No, everyone left.
Okay. Okay, with that, we've covered the two items that we've identified in our agenda in executive session and sought appropriate legal counsel. I understand there may be a motion that someone wants to raise in regards to one of those issues.
Yes, Chair Noy Wong Wilson. I move that we amend the today's agenda by 2/3 vote to allow for a resolution to be considered, UH Board of Regents proposed resolution 23-01 for discussion. Is that a sufficient resolution, Ryan?
Yes. If the action item is just for discussion in public forum.
Yes.
So if I may, Chair. If I could amend that before we've actually got a second on it, I would amend it to include it as an action item. So discussion and potential consideration of a authority vote authorizing the chair limited authority to act on behalf of the authority regarding that Board of Regents draft resolution 2301.
Thank you. Yes, I accept that friendly amendment.
Second.
Do we need a second? Oh,
Okay. Ben seconded.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion, as I understand it, is to discuss and provide and have the ability as a board to designate to the chair something to say about UH Board of Regents Resolution 23-01.
To amend the agenda.
Yes.
I'm sorry. To
Yeah.
amend the agenda to allow us to make that consideration. All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Now, we have that ability now, having made that agenda, it was for the record, it was a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
It was a unanimous vote. So now we have the opportunity to discuss, and I'll turn it to Noy in terms of what she believes should happen, what her position is in regards to resolution 2301.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is relating to Board of Regents, University of Hawaii Board of Regents 2301 that was communicated to the authority. It's entitled to further act on items related to Mauna Kea management. Oh no, am I reading the right one? Is that correct? Yeah, I think so. To further act on items relating to Mauna Kea management and repeal of Regents resolutions 19-03 and 21-02. So just in general, there are parts of this resolution that has been sent to us that I think requires conversation, much more detailed conversation by this board and consideration. So two things is that one, we are planning for that to occur on August 30. And so that's coming up. Secondly, it is my understanding that the Board of Regents will agendize this resolution for decision-making at their next meeting, which occurs before our gathering, before our opportunity to really discuss this resolution. So my request here is so that the authority, provide you, Chair Komeiji, with the ability to respond to this resolution and to ask the Board of Regents at the university to defer their decision-making until after our group has had a chance to fully discuss it.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, within the scope of the, thank you for that. Actually, since it's Noe's motion, perhaps she should go first.
No, you have something.
I think I've explained already my
Okay.
position on that. I don't have anything further, but unless you have an amendment to
I don't.
my recommendation.
I just think that we should ensure that as a part of the conversation here, that it's the idea would be that we would, at least to me, will deliberate. But then as a part of those deliberations, I would anticipate that we would have some, if within the deliberations, there are modifications that we would ask be made, that we then will proceed with that so that we actually meet the timeline associated with the Board of Regents next meeting in September. Not sure the timing of our meeting in September and their meeting in September and whether or not we would be able to meet that. So I just want to make sure that whatever is deliberated and decided, that be communicated in a timely manner so that it can be considered by the Board of Regents in their September meeting.
My only comment to that is I anticipate a very robust conversation about co-management. And I don't want to be constrained to have make sure that we conclude everything in the one meeting that we do have scheduled, just so the Board of Regents can have it on their next agenda following. I would just prefer to ask them to defer their next scheduled meeting and wait until we have had the chance to fully discuss this and come up with our own conclusions before we put any time frame to the following actions.
And maybe we can caveat it by saying that we would come up with a position as soon as practicable.
Absolutely, as soon as practical, but I don't want to catch ourselves in deadlines, date deadlines.
Come on up, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just want to, I get the urgency. I also want to take into account what Antinoino is saying. Just technically, our authority can't take a position until we vet it and take a vote, even though we're giving chair authority here to ask for a deferment, but we actually can't take a position until we have a full vote. So I don't think it's prudent to say we can report back to them in that particular timeline. So yeah, so maybe as practical or as prudent, or when our authority is able to make a determination.
Okay. So the motion, I'm trying to figure out what exactly is the motion right now, because Doug he didn't move to make an amendment.
Right. So my motion, if I can restate it properly, is because we have already voted to agendize this. So now my motion is that we ask we ask the chair, we delegate the authority to you, the chair, to ask for a deferment of this upcoming decision-making on the agenda of the Board of Regents on this particular resolution.
2301.
Yes, 2301, so that we can, until after we have had the opportunity to meet and discuss.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second.
All right, further discussion? Okay, having heard none, all in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. Okay. Unanimous vote. Thank you. So I will relay that message to the chair and then formally submit testimony that comports with the resolution. Okay. Gonna go to announcements.
I gotta leave, John, so
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Okay, so the next meeting, September 14th, 2023 at 10 o'clock a.m. The other announcement, it actually came in to me after this agenda was posted, but remember there was a Board of Land and Natural Resources hearing that was originally scheduled for last month sometime, dealing with the issue of whether or not TMT had complied with initiating construction. I just got notified that new hearing date will be on October 6th. I don't remember the time, but that's that hearing that got postponed that was originally scheduled, I think at the end of July. But the issue there is whether or not TMT has complied with the CDP requirement to have started construction by a certain date. That hearing has been now moved before the Board of Land and Natural Resources to October 6th. Okay, any further announcements? If not,
Everybody. Thank
yeah,
you, John.
thank you. And we'll see all of you in a couple of weeks. Okay,
You need a motion to adjourn.
yeah,
So moved. I moved to adjourn.
Second.
I object. Nah. Okay, anybody object to adjourning? If not, unanimous. Thank you.